Today, we have a very personal and emotional account of surviving COVID-19 from a longtime colleague and friend of mine, and it's really something. He has a request for you as well. Eric Alexander spent 37 years working in Seattle television news, mostly as a photojournalist. He was one of our best. At the end of February, I ran into him in Disneyland, neither of us knowing that about 4 weeks later, he would be alone in an ICU on a ventilator and fighting for his life.
I went to urgent care, and they did the virus swipe. Oh my God! The pipe cleaner up the nose until your brain starts. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God! They did it 3 times. And then they said, oh no, no virus. We can't find a virus, but you do have pneumonia. Take these antibiotics and come back if you don't feel better.
His health continued to deteriorate with fatigue and breathlessness until finally he got a dire warning.
I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, but I was on the speakerphone, and so her husband could hear me. And he is a retired firefighter who was on the job for 30 years. Through the speakerphone, he says to me, Eric, something's wrong, go to the ER. And I was like, oh, I went to the ER and they said to come back in a few days if I didn't feel better. He goes, Eric, I'm telling you right now, 30 years of experience, you're in trouble. You should go to the ER right now.
With rising panic, Eric headed to the ER near his home in Southern California.
By the time I got to the garage door to open it up to get into the garage to get my car, I had to stop and rest. And then the same thing happened with the elevator. And then now I'm starting to go, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it.
Somehow he made it to the triage area.
The triage outside now, here. I don't know if they do that up there.
Yeah.
And so I sit down and the guy says, what's wrong? And I tell him, and somebody's there right away and puts me in a wheelchair, wheels me into the hospital through the doors, and that's the last thing I remember. The next thing I know, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
But next thing So next thing I know, the nurse's face is over my face. And she's in full gear. She's got the mask, she's got the faceplate, the hair, the thing. And I look into her eyes, and it was the most wonderful thing I had ever seen. Just those eyes just looking at me and just saying so much.
The nurse was able to put a pen in Eric's hand.
I was able to write one word that she could read, and it was die. And she said, are you asking me if you're going to die? And she said, she goes, you have COVID-19, but you're not going to die. And the look in her face made me believe it. Like, she wasn't going to let it happen. But all I could think of was my kids. I said, I'll never see them again.
And then the darkest time, days on a ventilator when he could no longer breathe for himself.
When your oxygen level isn't good enough for us to take you off. I am lucky that I did not understand what was happening. The sad thing was that my family understood what was happening. And my daughter had a countdown going in her head. She's like, if he's on this many days, then he'll be fine. If he's on this many days, then... And so I didn't know that every day I was on the ventilator, they were just getting more stressed.
Eric was among the lucky who got to the other side, made it off the ventilator.
That was the part where I was most afraid, because that feeling, when it comes out, it's like for a second you instantly think you're drowning.
The hospital stay was over, but the consequences of COVID-19 were not.
When I got home, Margaret, that first night, I didn't sleep. I sat up in my bed as long as I could sit up. I think I did manage to sit up until daytime, because I was so convinced that if I fell asleep, I would die in my sleep.
I mean, this is part of what we're not getting, I think, as a society, not understanding the physical leftovers and the emotional leftovers.
And the thing is, it's like, my doctor said, it may take a year for your lungs to recover, if they ever fully recover.
In the 2 weeks he'd been away from the world, a lot had changed.
It's good to be alive, isn't it?
It's good to be alive. It makes almost everything in your life more vibrant. Everything's a little more intense.
Intense also described his emotions as he discovered the growing resistance to face coverings, something that might have spared him the virus.
I'm not trying to make people angry. I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings. I just don't want them to feel bad if they killed somebody. You have to make people realize that just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean it's not happening. And it takes so little to save a life. People tell you all these things that they would do to save a life. Oh, I'd rush into a burning building. Oh, I'd go face to face with a mass shooter. I would, and then you go, oh, will you wear a piece of cloth over your face? Oh, no, I'll never do that. And it's like, don't tell me you're going to run into a burning building, because I don't believe you.
Eric freely admits it's uncomfortable to be on the other side of the camera this way, but with a second chance at life, he says he wants us all to know it is not just the flu, and it's not just for somebody else.
As a journalist, what you hope is you tell a story that makes a difference in people's lives, that affect them in a way that they decide to make a different choice, whether it's a choice to help others or at the very least not hurt themselves. And that's it. That's why we do what we do. And so this is just part of that.